I'm Wendi Coker with the Betty and Leonard Phillips Deaf Action Center in Shreveport, Louisiana. Thank you for joining me. This video was designed to help you understand what reasonable accommodations you and your company are required to provide for your deaf, deafblind, or hard of hearing employees. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, mandates equal opportunities for people with disabilities. The ADA prohibits businesses from discriminating against qualified disabled persons in any part of the employment process, meaning during the hiring process, once they're employees, and then also during any type of termination or resignation process. So just keep those things in mind, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Now, I want you to remember that deaf employees should have the same opportunities as any other employee. So let's take a minute to discuss what this means for you and your deaf employee or future deaf employees. First, let's look at the meaning of the term reasonable accommodations. Now, understand that reasonable accommodations, that meaning will vary. This has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Accommodations are not just across the board, so what works for one person may not work for the other. The individual employees need to be taken into consideration. For deaf individuals who use American Sign Language, ASL, as their primary form of communication, a qualified sign language interpreter is generally the best accommodation for things such as meetings, where there's a lot of information that's going to be exchanged. Now, you cannot request that a friend or a family member or even a coworker that may know a little bit of sign do this for them. You need to hire a professional interpreter that comes to your facility and interprets whatever event, meeting that you have going on. So ADA prohibits you telling the deaf person, well, you bring a friend or you bring your own interpreter, we'll just get this coworker to interpret for you. ADA prohibits this. So a professional interpreter must be hired at no cost to the employee. The company is responsible to provide and pay for these services. Now, other deaf or hard of hearing employees would prefer a text version of the meeting provided by a computer-aided transcription service, CART. Again, the company is responsible to provide and pay for these services as well. For brief interactions, such as maybe a quick question in reference to your employee's time off, an email, a short memo, or a note may be sufficient. Believe me, the employee will let you know if they feel like an interpreter is needed. Now, another great option may be the Video Remote Interpreting Service, VRI. There are several companies out there offering this service. This would allow you to have access to an interpreter on demand. All you would need was a laptop or a computer that you're able to log into, dial in, and your interpreter would be on the screen. Each company has a different billing rate, so you need to check with them, but usually they bill you per minute. VRI is a great option for short exchanges between you and your employee. I would also recommend that you contact your local agency and see if this is a service that they offer. Deaf and hard of hearing individuals vary in the same way that you and I do. They're each different, so it's always a good idea to ask them what accommodations are best for you. Now remember, each situation may vary. There may be times that you think that they need several accommodations when in fact they only need a few, or vice versa. So it's always best just not to assume, just go straight to the source and talk to them and see what they feel is the best accommodation for them. Again, deaf employees should always be given the same opportunities as any other employee. They are entitled to attend meetings, trainings, workshops, special events such as work parties or maybe an award ceremony, just as any other employee. You cannot exclude them because of their disability. So let's look at an example. Suppose your company's having a safety meeting. You cannot expect the deaf employee to sit through a safety meeting without an interpreter, VRI, or CART. Just handing them an outline and saying, read this either before or after the meeting or just whenever you feel like it. That is not acceptable. They miss out on a lot of important information by not being provided the accommodations that they need. Your agency could be responsible since they did not have the resources they needed to perform their job safely. So if they're not accommodated and then they end up getting hurt on their job, you are essentially responsible because the information was not appropriately conveyed to them. So just keep you and your company safe. All employers are required to provide reasonable accommodations unless this would cause an undue hardship on the company. Now, undue hardship means providing the reasonable accommodation would result in a significant difficulty or expense. But even in this case, the company should meet with the deaf individual and seek a solution. Your employee can never be expected to provide their own accommodations, such as bring your own interpreter or provide their own equipment that relates directly to their job. The company is required to do everything possible to provide accommodations for them. Now, you may choose to provide an easier, maybe less costly accommodation. As long as it's effective in meeting the employee's needs, then that may be acceptable. But I would suggest, again, to contact the local interpreting agency and ask for guidance. Remember, these agencies have experience and knowledge in this area, so do not be afraid to reach out to them. If you're unable to provide the requested accommodation, now when I say requested, I'm talking specifically what the employee has requested, and you're not able to provide that, be prepared to prove that this is a hardship to your company. You cannot just deny services, or if they request an interpreter, you can't just deny that service just because it's expensive and you don't want to pay. Remember, you're paying for professionals, interpreters that have been trained in this area of expertise. Be sure to communicate with your employee. Communication is important. You do not ever want them to feel ignored or pushed to the side. Keep them in the loop. This will show them that you're doing everything in your power to accommodate them. Another accommodation that you may want to consider is the Video Relay Service, VRS. This is a video telecommunication service that allows the deaf and hard of hearing individuals to communicate over video telephones with hearing people in real time via a sign language interpreter. Now, for your non-sign language users, CapTel is a good option. CapTel displays every word the caller says throughout the conversation by displaying caption on the telephone, so they're able to read what's being said. Now, these options provide the employees with equal access to the phone. These services have been proven to enhance a deaf individual's performance at work. I mean, this gives them the ability to use the phone just as any other employee could. Here's a list of phone numbers to assist you in beginning your research. Now, these may not possibly be all the companies out there, but this is just to get you started in your research. So be sure to research all these and see which one would be the best option for your company. Appropriate emergency systems may also need to be set up to ensure the deaf employee's safety. Some examples would be a flashing emergency system or a provided vibrating pager. Many agencies may already have these established due to building regulations, but this is something that you may want to check into. Depending on the actual job the deaf or hard of hearing employee is performing, you may have to arrange their desk so that they have more visual access to what's going on around them. Remember, they depend on their eyes to hear their surroundings. As the employer, you do not have to eliminate any essential functions of a job, such as tolerate performance that does not meet the company standards, or excuse violations of conduct rules that are job-related. You also do not have to provide employees with personal use items such as hearing aids or other devices that are used both on and off the job. In closing, I again want to emphasize, if you don't know, ask. Deaf employees are eager to make their jobs successful, so do not be afraid to ask them how you can assist in their journey. Thank you for taking the time and doing your research when it comes to your deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing employee. Be assured that your hard work and dedication will pay off. Thank you for watching.